Good evening. Welcome to the June 5th Village Board regular meeting. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Trustee Bazemore? Trustee Herrera?
Present.
Trustee Levin? Present. Trustee Guzada?
Present.
Mayor Garrity?
Present.
We'll begin this evening with the public hearing in the matter of the application of the Ossining Land LLC for a planned waterfront special permit pursuant to Village Code Sections 270-23I and 270-53.
Yes, Corporation Counsel, you want to give us a little update?
Sure. This is just there's a continuation of the public hearing for the special permit. I see the council is here. Since the last time that this public hearing was held, I can judge, and some of you I'm sure are aware they did grant the variances. The resolution with the variances and conditions will be signed on Tuesday night at that zoning board meeting. The applicant was today provided with a revision list with regard to the demolition permit and what is needed to obtain the demolition permit. That's where that is right now. We are working with the Historic Preservation Commission to set up a time so that there can be a tour of Smith Robinson. The reason that's important is that part of the demolition will involve work within Smith Robinson, as well as the surrounding buildings there. So HPC is going to be involved. And also there will be a continuation tomorrow night with the Environmental Advisory Council with regard to the consistency review under the LWRP. So that's where we are with all of this. And the site plan resolution by planning will be executed in 2 weeks at the next planning board meeting. It was approved at the prior, but the actual resolution won't get signed until their June meeting. And that's where we are.
Could you just remind us, what were the other conditions with the ZBA's approval that is imminently going to be signed?
They had numerous. A lot of it dealt with keeping the property clean and keeping it maintained. I don't have the full list in front of me, but they wanted certain in essence conditions put on in terms of that the property will be properly policed, the property will be maintained with regard to what they're doing there. There were some questions raised with regard to the number of parking spaces. That issue has been resolved because it was determined that these are shared parking spaces, not what was previously identified as live work, which would have required an additional 18 parking spaces on site. But all of the conditions that were requested by the which were approved by the zoning board will be in that resolution. The 30-day clock for most of those will begin with the signing of the resolution. So with the resolution being signed on June the 11th, they would have till basically July 11th to comply with those conditions. Otherwise, they'll have to come back to the ZBA.
Okay. Yeah. Council want to update us on anything?
No, I think Stuart covered everything, but we're here to answer any additional questions you have. Thank you.
Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this public hearing?
The board.
Thank you. Does your client drove by the property lately?
I know Barnett. I have Stefan here from Ossining Land. Barnett was at the property last month, and they have someone maintaining the property regularly.
You should stop by after this meeting. I just drove by again, and the grass is overgrown. Garbage all the way around James Hunter State Street. So I'm not sure if you guys are waiting for the resolution zoning board to be signed to start complying. Relations that was implied to you, something that we have said, or at least me have said to you guys. You guys only maintain that property when you guys come in front of any board. So I'm not sure why you guys keep doing it. So, so some of the questions that I have is regarding to there was some got submitted plans sometime last year. The ICC reviewed this. How you guys doing with the compliances to their review? You guys done any progress with that? If you guys get a permit at some point?
Well, we're working towards getting building permit, but we need these approvals in place first. Stefan can maybe speak to more, but I understand that we are still working with the engineering and architecture team, going over the comments and addressing them. And we're kind of going through this process right now, and then we'll get back into it.
So the ICC reviewed the set of drawings, and the last revisions that I have was September 2018. So since September 2018, you guys have done no service at all to review, to actually make corrections on your set of drawings that were submitted?
Well, I believe we were paused slightly because in September, that's when we identified that these approvals had expired and that we had to go through this process before we could continue with getting the building
So
permit.
my question goes, let's say you get approvals for the next 2 months. In the next 2 months, you guys will be filing building permit again. Will it be the same drawings or a revised set of drawings?
They'll be revised per the comments.
Just to bring everybody up to speed on the board and perhaps at home, Corporation Counsel, could you just give a little background as to what Trustee Quesada is a little more versed in this than the average person
I'm happy
on
to,
what
Mayor.
he's referring to?
Thanks. Prior to the expiration of the earlier approvals, the applicant had submitted a large number of plans, simply put. Instead of having our building inspector review them, which would have been an exceptionally time-consuming job to do, the applicant put into the village's escrow account nearly $50,000, which was then used to fund a review of those plans by the International Code Council. The plans were sent there. There were a few hiccups initially in terms of what the plan showed. I think first it was just a foundation, and then there were other issues. But as Trustee Quesada points out, in I guess September of 18, the building department as well as the applicant received numerous documents from the International Code Council dealing with each of the different codes and how they were being reviewed, be it the mechanical code, the fire code, the plumbing code, the electrical code. And they were also given a list of corrective measures that need to be done on the various plans. That's so before any permit could be issued, the plans essentially have to be turned around and corrected as per the ICC review. That's what the trustee was referring to, and I did confirm with the building department. They haven't gotten any new plans, and probably because they have not yet gone through the they have not gotten new plans through the ICC. But that's what that refers to. It's a review process that's done in this case by an outside third party paid for by the applicant.
Thank you, sir. I guess my last, I want to formalize this. We talked about a little bit about this last week and the previous weeks, and I believe have the majority of the board supporting us opening the agreement that we have in regards to that. So I would like to see can set up a meeting
Sure.
with them and kind of go over some of the items that I have concerns on.
Yes, I spoke with my client, and we would be interested in offering a solution. We were thinking half of the payment at the close of the construction financing, which would be shortly after obtaining the building permit, and then the other half upon the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy.
I think the details we can talk about in.
Sure, of course.
Stuart, any update on the demolition permit?
Yes, Trustee Bazemore. On Friday, the application was filed with the building department for the demo permit. Building inspector Augustinelli and I reviewed it. He looked at obviously from the building perspective. I did not, because that's not my area. But today, a revision list was sent to the applicant from the building department with various issues that are outstanding in terms of the permit. For example, we require a certificate of insurance. The certificate of insurance that was provided expires on the 16th of July. So that's going to have to be updated. We need an updated letter from Con Edison. We need an updated letter from the pest control company. The last one we have is from 2015. There are other questions as to dust control at the area, which is particularly important given that they're taking down 3 buildings plus the work they're doing inside of Smith Robinson. There's a question as to whether the water and waste lines have been disconnected. One thing that particularly because we're dealing with a landmark building is that the building inspector wanted to know the method of how the sections of Smith Robinson House will be protected during the demolition process. I should point out that when the prior demolition permit was applied for in 2016, it was accompanied by a demolition plan and protection plan, which was signed off by a professional engineer. We don't have that this time. It's a different demo contractor, and it is something that the building inspector is looking for. And so those various items need to be accomplished before the accomplished and reviewed before the demo permit can be issued.
And once the demo permit is issued, when does the demo permit expire?
6 months.
6 months.
Are there further questions or about on this topic? Otherwise, we're going to have to decide if we want to close the public hearing.
Stefan?
Mr. Malter?
Mr. Malter, it's good to see you. I kind of want to reiterate Trustee Casada's points with respect to the upkeep of the building. Just last night, residents are coming to me complaining about the site of the building. Prentex building has looked like this for a number of years. My question is, when are you going to demolish the building? When are you going to upkeep the building? You are not a good neighbor. As of right now, you are not a good neighbor. So what's going on?
Mr. Malter, if you could speak to the microphone, please. Thank you.
I'll apologize for not being a good neighbor. I guess as somewhat absentee owners, we are only as good as the folks that we try to hire and keep them in line in terms of helping us to maintain the property. Certainly, we will send around some more inspection. We're going to continue to work on the demolition permit, get going on the demolition, and keep things moving in a positive direction so that we can get useful property here after all this time.
Out of curiosity, do you think you'll be asking for any more pilots?
Not at this time.
Stuart,
Yes, Mayor.
I just want to make sure that I understand. This week, the ZBA is expected to sign their approvals, which have these conditions, which include demolition, securing the building, maintaining the property in an
That should be
acceptable manner.
signed on the 11th.
So if that's signed 6 days from now, it's not next Tuesday, then the clock starts ticking, and the ZBA approvals. What happens in 30 days if all of those conditions are not met? So right now, I believe there's 8 items that still need to be reconciled in order for the demolition permit to be approved. So and that's only one of the items. So
Right. I have to go back. I think that if it's not done within 30 days, they have to report back to the ZBA. It does not cancel out the variances because the variances have a 6-month life, just by code. But they would have to report back to the ZBA to essentially keep the ZBA apprised of exactly what's going on with regard to the situation. Similarly, with regard to the special permit here, while it has an outside expiration date of 18 months, this board can make a determination that it can be a shorter period of time for the special permit.
Just from an operational perspective, I just want to understand, the ZBA sent, in their approval, it was conditional. If the conditions aren't met, the approval still stands for 6 months?
Ordinarily, if you don't meet the condition, what would happen is what we've done, particularly with planning boards, we bring the person back, and if they haven't met the conditions, then in fact that approval becomes void, and
Okay.
that's what it would. And that most likely will be the language that will be included in the resolution before the ZBA, because they did make certain conditions with regard to what has to be done. So the 6 month is the ordinary situation for a variance, where they can then ask for an extension.
So for the purposes of this board
Right.
tonight, this is the second time we've had a public hearing on the special use permit, and can you remind the public on what it is that that this public hearing is actually about? Because we've been talking about this project in a much more broad manner.
Of course. The purpose of tonight's public hearing and the purpose of the special permit is the property is in our planned waterfront district, and in order to obtain certain density bonuses that they are seeking, they need a special permit, and that special permit is granted only by the Board of Trustees.
And we would be granting it because
You'd be granting it because
there's certain things that they have to do in order for us to say,
right,
yes,
they
you
have
met
to
these
come within
standards.
the various elements of the types of they have to come within the elements for the density bonuses that are listed under the code. Those could include historic preservation. That could include a river walk. That could include, providing certain infrastructure. There's a number of things, and what happens is the applicant essentially had come to the planning board and indicated this is what they were doing, and they need that in order to then come before you to get the special permit.
And the planning board sent a recommendation to us regarding this,
They sent
correct?
a recommendation to this board. Their recommendation was to grant the special permit. That is correct.
Okay, so we've had 2 public hearings, so now we have a couple of decisions to make. Do we want to keep the public hearing open tonight? Do we want to close the public hearing? We do close the public hearing tonight. Do we want to vote to grant the special permit tonight? And if that's the case, then you have a resolution that could be read into the record, correct? Right. That's what we have to decide right now. We want to close the public hearing for starters.
I don't.
Anybody else have an opinion on that?
I don't either. Not at this time.
I don't have a strong feeling about the need to close the public hearing, but I am interested in understanding what will be the value of being the public hearing open for 2 more weeks.
I would like to have the meeting for the 2 weeks and see how that meeting goes. Because most of what we were referring before is there's a lot of infrastructure or a lot of projects that were off-site that were part of this project that will have benefit our neighbors, your neighbors. One of them being that we did the realignment of Water and Hunter Street. That project was already done a couple years back. The other one is doing some streetscape along James, also connection between James and Hunter. I would like to see how does that work or me personally, I make any decisions in regards to the special permit. That's my reason why I would like to hold it. I know that's not a valid reason to hold this particular meeting open, but that's just my reason why I'm doing that.
If I may, Trustee Quezada and Mayor, the purpose of the public hearing is to effectively hear from the public. Tonight, other than the applicant, there's no one else. If you close it, you still have 62 days to make a decision from the date that you make the decision. And that we recently had that, as you know, with Hidden Cove or Plateau Associates. So while I have a resolution prepared tonight, it's just because I have it here, and the board can consider it, you also have time to do that. I think since, we've had, you had comments the last time. Tonight, other than the applicant, there are no other comments. You would certainly be, not have an issue with closing the public hearing, and then, if you want to consider what the resolution should say. As I said, one of the issues may be for how long do you want to continue the special permit? Do you want them to just make it that it has to be 6 months, which would be in line with how long the zoning variance is, or which is a thought from this board. But closing the public hearing simply starts the clock for this board to ultimately have to make its decision. And again, you have 62 days.
Given the fact that closing the public hearing does start a clock from ticking, I am sensitive to the suggestion, even though I realize that the special use permit is not contingent upon reopening the agreement. But it is all sort of a big dance of every approval having to sort of impact something else.
Ultimately, the board's determination. So, I just throw that out. But
if we kept it open for 2 more weeks, then that would be June 19th would be the next public hearing. And at that time, we may have been able to have a meeting with the applicant to review the agreement. Renegotiate it?
So the agreement was only for the water main relining portion. So I'm just wondering what you would like us to bring to this meeting to discuss.
More than that. You should go back and read the whole agreement. More than just that.
Annie, I think what we'll do is if we could set something up, I'm happy to talk to you offline as to what other issues there are, rather than put that on the record right now.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we're going to keep the public hearing open until June 19th. Is that the motion that's on the table?
Stuart, I just have a quick question before we proceed. Who is notified of these public hearings? Like, how do we?
It is put into the paper when we publish the agenda. It's not mailed like a hearing for the zoning board or the planning board, where it specifically says it's got to be within 300 feet. Our code doesn't provide, and nor does this village law. It's basically just has to be published.
I also have included it on both occasions in my Monday email.
I understand. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. I think truthfully that any one of us could send out to people on social media or anybody that we think would be interested. Nothing stopping us from communicating with the public. I think, and I think your attorney has heard this from me personally, probably over the last 8 weeks. We represent the public, and that's really all we are. We're members of the public. I'm not an architect or an engineer or a lawyer. I'm just a member of the public. But when I drive my daughter, who was born here and grew up here, across next to that property, and one of our trustees lives a block from that property, it's disgraceful. It makes it really difficult for us as representatives of the public who have to listen to how lousy that place looks over and over again. To sit here, your apology from my perspective is disingenuous and unaccepted. So I don't mean to be rude, but your lawyer's heard me a number of times. It is not the first time she has had to stand without you standing next to her and listen to a bunch of people take it out on her at a meeting and telling her client to ask them to, I don't think the word a good neighbor was what was said. There were other words used by the EAC, but, these are for public records. It's just, I don't care where the landlord lives. We live here, and you're standing here. And it makes it really difficult. I actually don't have a strong opinion as some of my colleagues, one way or the other. But honestly, just as a person who lives here, I couldn't do to my property what you do to yours and get away with it. I'm sorry. So clean it up. Seriously, I don't know how else to say it.
Did you want to chime in?
One more.
Deputy Mayor Levin said it best, and I echo what she said, because I've kind of said that numerous times as well. So, what I would actually, a further suggestion would just be, as you wait for your demolition permit, to just start significant improvements around the perimeter tomorrow. Just as you wait and as you continue your overall approval process, to kind of just show the community, show the board, show your neighbors that you really are sorry and that you want to be a good neighbor, and that you can't change the past, but right now, going forward, that when people drive there in a week, at least the perimeter, they could see a noticeable improvement. And there's a lot you can do to a perimeter that is going to be under construction without even the public even knowing. So, I mean, you could be creative. Please. Thank you.
Just one last question. What are the 12, you spoke about a criteria that they have to meet for the special use permit.
Yes.
Would you happen to know the criteria that you're meeting as far as like what you're offering the community for this particular special use permit?
I don't know.
No?
Oh, you don't.
I don't think we need that in order to be able to make a decision on, to keep the public hearing open for 2 more weeks, because that's definitely the consensus of what I'm hearing tonight. So,
I do have it.
Okay.
So, it's from section 270-23I4, is the zoning code section. And we were proposing, meeting 3 of the criteria. The first criteria is historic preservation, preserving a significant portion of a building or structure identified by the planning board and agreed to by the Historic Review Commission as being of historical, cultural, or architectural significance. Number 2, use of green building techniques. And 3, contribution to non-site related infrastructure improvements.
Thank you.
Those are the conditions from the zoning code.
okay. I will say a couple of those. The HPC actually required
Right.
the restoration of Smith Robinson Hill.
Yeah, they issued a certificate of appropriateness.
So I don't know that we can also count that toward the special use permit, right? Because
Well, it's specifically a condition that we could offer to qualify for the permit.
right, I understand that it's on the list of potential things, but in this case, it was a requirement by the HPC. So it's fulfilling an obligation, unless I'm wrong.
No, but what it comes down to, at the end of the day, they're looking for essentially a kick up in the number of density. And what it is HPC, obviously it's a landmark building, so they would have had to have preserved a landmark building.
Right.
And they had to get the certificate of appropriateness through that. So I think, Mayor, what would be more appropriate is that how they're preserving the building was determined by the HPC, because that's the critical factor here. They're not deconstructing the building, they're not taking it apart, but they are preserving it under the auspices of the HPC. So, the colonnades in the front and all
Oh,
things
yes.
have to
Oh,
be.
no, I think the preservation of it definitely,
But
absolutely has value. I'm just not sure that qualifies as one of the conditions that would motivate us. There are others, because there are the infrastructure
Right.
investment,
And
but I
what
just
it
think
does
that's
is
sort of double dipping on the
Ultimately,
value of them.
those numbers, when you even if that one is, let's say, diminished somewhat in terms of calculation, it ultimately would get them to the additional bonus density that they're seeking in order to build their 188, 189 units.
Okay. All righty. I think we need to move on. Do we have a motion to continue this public hearing until June 19th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll move into mayor's and trustees announcements.
sure there are announcements. There's a lot of great stuff happening. Trustee Herrera, you seem to have your phone open. You want to go first?
Yes. So this Friday, join me and people across the country and in New York and wearing orange to fight for a future free of gun violence, and it's part of National Wear Orange Day. So I encourage you to do so. It's a weekend-long event, and you'll be surprised what an awareness day and weekend can do. And I really encourage you to read the stories in the whole campaign at wearorange.org. This Saturday is Westchester's largest street fair, better known as the Ossining Village Fair. You could expect 180 vendors. You could expect a completely redone artisanal food and food truck and beer and wine and oyster and clam roped off area for those that can indulge in that. You could also expect 4 music stages this year, and I will leave all the other logistics and good advice for all drivers and pedestrians to our police department when they give their update. And I have an update that I just got as I was going through this. The New York State Assembly Speaker released a statement about 2 hours ago. Today, the Assembly Transportation Committee took a critical first step and passed the legislation A3675A, better known as Green Light New York, to allow undocumented immigrants access to driver's licenses. The full Assembly will take up and pass this legislation when they return to session this coming Tuesday. Make no mistake, this legislation is a critical step towards making our roads safer, boosting our state's economy, and protecting hardworking New Yorkers and their families. So that's pretty good news. As you know, the board, our police department, and really the village have been one of the key leaders in making sure that this initiative actually occurs in our state, and we're one step closer. So, thank you.
Others with announcements?
So this is Ossining's Arts Project is actually hosting their 3rd annual jazz festival here. So if you are interested, it'll be held on the 7th and 8th. And please purchase your tickets.
Anyone else? I want to thank everybody who came out yesterday for 2 really important village events. We had our first LGBTQ Pride flag raising in front of Village Hall at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We had a great turnout of folks. It was also a beautiful day and some inspiring remarks. So thanks everybody who was there. And as you drive by Village Hall for the rest of the month, you will see that the Pride flag is flying there along with the village and the American flag. And then the whole board and dozens of other people were at the library last night beginning at 7 o'clock for the Comprehensive Plan Info Session. It was the kickoff for Comprehensive Plan Update. We're really pleased about the number of turnout, number of people who turned out. There was some familiar faces and a lot of new faces, which is great to see. And we will be giving you updates as we move forward with what's coming up next for our Comprehensive Plan Update and how you can be involved. It's really critical that the whole community is involved so we make smart decisions that because they're going to impact us for the next 10 or 20 years, and we want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard and we understand the concerns of every neighborhood. And continuing with the occasions celebrating or honoring LGBTQ Pride Month, tomorrow evening, please join us at the Ossining Public Library at 6:30 for this June offering is a film called Trans Military. There are over 15,000 people who are transgender serving in the U.S. military. There was a ban against transgender people serving in the military that was lifted in 2016, and President Trump and his administration are now considering reinstating that ban, which will bring up an awful lot of questions for the 15,000 people, more than that, who are serving in our military. And so it's a very timely subject. We have an excellent panel. It's being co-sponsored by Phelps Memorial Hospital and by the Loft. The Loft is providing a moderator for the occasion. It's a really terrific panel. I encourage you to learn more about it at ossiningdocumentaries.org and to join us at the library tomorrow, June 6th at 6:30 p.m. As always, this program is free to the public.
Okay, we'll move into administrative reports. Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, the board will be considering Resolution D, which is adoption of proposed local law 3 of 2019, which will actually become Local Law 2, 2019, if approved, and that is to provide for alternates on our land use boards. I mention this because that means that there will be 8 openings on those boards for alternates on both planning, zoning, EAC, and historic preservation, some of which we've talked about tonight. So for folks who are interested, please get your applications in. They can go to our village's website to do that. But the role of the alternate is particularly important because we have on occasions had some issues with getting quorum. So this way, those alternates will participate and be full members of the board if necessary to vote and consider various applications. All of our land use boards are very active and very busy. So I'd love to have as many folks as possible apply so that we have a nice pool of applicants to choose from. Thank you.
Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. I'll be brief, just a couple of traffic announcements. There are some paving projects going on around the village. We'll be putting out messaging as those move from spot to spot. This Saturday, along with the village fair, that means that Main Street and some of the surrounding areas will be closed, beginning around 9 a.m. and probably going until 5 o'clock to give a little time for cleanup afterwards. So we ask people to be patient with the road closures and watch for folks in the crosswalks trying to get to it. The next day after the fair, there's a 5K race for the Clearview School beginning on the Aqueduct Promenade adjacent to the community center. So that may cause some minor delays on Ann Street, Van Wyck, and Snowden Avenue. That's going to be beginning at 9 a.m. and shouldn't last more than an hour. Next Saturday, we also have a Portuguese Cultural Festival coming to Main Street, so that may cause some minor delays around Market Square. So just ask people to be patient with traffic and to keep an eye out for folks that are walking. Beyond that, we're diligently preparing for our accreditation assessment from New York State, which will take place on June 18th, 19th, and 20th. So that is our primary focus until that time. Thank you.
We'll move into organization announcements. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on any organization announcements? No? Village board resolutions. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on any of the resolutions on the agenda this evening?
Welcome. Before you speak, I was just going to suggest to the clerk and to Corporation Counsel, I see we have a number of folks here who are interested, particularly, I believe, in item G. Perhaps we can do that first after we hear comments about the resolutions.
So my name is Aaron Spring, 64 Meadow Road. Here just a comment about Resolution G. Be brief, I just wanted to thank the Mayor and Board of Trustees for considering this resolution. Wanted to thank Bill Garrison as well from the Rec Department, Acting Village Manager Fioli, as well as the rest of the committee that worked with me on this project to rename this park, including Miss Lisa Jackson, Brett Wells, Meadows Ryan, Justin Cuzio, Marcella Levin. It really means a lot to us. And, you know, the Ossining youth is taking notice of this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, we'll go to Resolution G first.
Yes, we'll do G and then go back to A.
Okay. Resolution naming State Park at Snowden Park for Gregory C. Jackson Jr. Whereas Gregory C. Jackson Jr. was born on July 18, 1997, and resided in the village of Ossining until his ultimately death on February 1st, 2019. And whereas Gregory C. Jackson Jr. was an avid skateboarder who wanted the village to install a skate park, and whereas friends and family members of Gregory C. Jackson Jr. approached the Recreation Advisory Board with an idea toward naming the skate park at Snowden Park for Gregory C. Jackson Jr., along with the placement of a memorial plaque. And whereas the Recreation Advisory Board, after considering the request, forwarded the request to the Board of Trustees for its consideration. And whereas on May 29, 2019 work session, the Board of Trustees heard the Recreation Superintendent Bill Garrison and the Village of Briarcliff resident Aaron Spring about the proposed naming. Now therefore be it resolved that the skate park at Snowden Park shall be named for Gregory C. Jackson Jr. and shall be known as Gregory C. Jackson Jr. Memorial Skate Park. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You're all set. Thank you. Before we move forward, I'll just recap some of the items that were discussed at last week's meeting. There's going to be some fundraising that's going to be undertaken for a portion of the signage. And now that you know that it's definitely approved, the fundraising can go forward, and then the village will step in and do the ordering and the installation and facilitate all of that. So very pleased to be moving forward. Thanks so much for coming to us with your thoughtful idea. Madam Clerk.
Letter B, approval of minutes, May 15, 2019. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the May 15, 2019 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Abstain.
You called this item B. Are you going to change every letter now because we jumped to D? Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
All right, we'll keep track of our alphabet. Go ahead.
Okay. Letter C, approval of voucher detail report, June 5th, 2019. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated June 5th, 2019 in the amount of $771,325.88. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter D, standard work day and reporting resolution for elected and appointed officials. Be it resolved that the Village of Ossining location code 40098 hereby establishes the following standard work days for these titles and will report the officials to the New York State and local retirement system based on their record of activities. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Letter E, adoption of proposed local law 3, a local law amending chapter 6 boards and commissions of the Village of Ossining Code. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining has been considering the adoption of proposed local law 3, 2019, titled the Local Law Amending Chapter 6 Boards and Commissions of the Village of Ossining Code, and whereas in accordance with the New York State law and the Village of Ossining Code, and having provided all requisite notice, the Board of Trustees conducted a public hearing on May 15, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, during which time the public had the opportunity to be heard regarding the proposed local law, and whereas at the conclusion of the public hearing was closed, and whereas the proposed local law has been considered by the Board of Trustees, and it has been determined that there are no impediments to proceeding with the adoption of the local law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby adopts proposed local law 3 as local law 2, and directs that said local law be filed and or distributed in accord with applicable law. Do I have a
So moved.
This is a roll call vote.
But we do have to move.
Okay.
Right, go ahead.
So
Do I have a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Trustee Bazemore?
Aye.
Trustee Gazada? Trustee Levin?
Aye.
Trustee Herrera?
Aye.
Mayor Garrity?
Aye.
Fair.
Letter F. Resolution declaring a proposed Village Pier extension project is consistent with the village's local Waterfront Revitalization Program, LWRP, and it is a Type 2 action pursuant to the State Environment Quality Review Act. Whereas the Village of Ossining desires to expand and enhance Haverstraw Ossining Ferry Pier, and whereas Hudson Valley Arts and Science, HVAS, a local non-for-profit, has received a grant from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for design, permitting, and construction documents in connection with the proposed expansion and enhancement of the pier. And whereas the Board of Trustees previously approved a resolution affirming its support for HVAS to formally submit option 38 to all regulatory agencies as the preferred alternative optimally balancing stakeholders' concerns. And whereas the Board of Trustees has conducted a consistency review with the assistance of the Planning Department and the Environmental Advisory Council to ascertain if the proposal is consistent with the village's local waterfront revitalization program, LWRP. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees determines that the proposed Village Pier extension is consistent with LWRP, and the consistency review is made part of this resolution, and be further resolved that in accord with Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law and Implementation Regulations, Part 6, NYCRR, the Board of Trustees determines that the proposed pier extension is a Type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, 6 NYCRR, Section 617.5A9. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Stuart, I just have one question. Throughout, in the title and then throughout, we refer to this as the Village Pier. The one time we refer to it differently is in the first whereas, and we say expand and enhance the Haverstraw / Ossining Ferry Pier, which I don't think is exactly accurate, because the ferry pier will become an offshoot of the Village Pier, and it's actually still the Village Pier. It's just utilized by the Ossining Haverstraw Ferry.
That's the point.
So with the approval of the board, we can change the first whereas to the Village of Ossining desires to expand and enhance the Village of Ossining Pier.
Is that okay? That would be. I didn't know if there was any particular reason why we were using this language. Okay.
I think I may have simply taken it from an earlier one, but we can
Okay.
absolutely change that.
Thank you. And then in that case, I'm ready to vote. Madam Clerk.
Do we have to have a motion to amend?
No, because I've amended it. Now they're going to do it, because they haven't moved on the main thing yet, so you can just call for the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Letter G, authorization for village to accept payment in satisfaction foreclosed tax lien 59 Upper Croton Avenue. Whereas in accordance with Ossining Village Charter, Article 4, the village treasurer is charged with the duty of collecting real property taxes from persons named in the tax roll, and in accordance with New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 1110, the village treasurer has the authority on or before the expiration of the applicable redemption period to accept payment of real property taxes from such persons, along with all charges authorized by law for real property subject to delinquent tax liens. And now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees hereby authorizes and directs the treasurer to accept payment in the amount sufficient to pay in full the total amount, including any interest, penalties, and other charges authorized by law, of the real property taxes and any tax liens, both pending and foreclosed, for property located at 59 Upper Croton Avenue, 90.13-2-86 in the Village of Ossining, and authorizes any and all necessary filings or notifications to evidence a release of said liens against the real property. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do you want to offer an explanation of this, Corporation Counsel?
If I may, Mayor, thank you. This was not referenced at last week's work session. The owner of this property has had taxes in arrears for a number of years. He has entered into a payment plan with the town. He has, however, tendered to the village a check in the amount of $11,905.72, which brings all of his property taxes owed to the village up to date. The next tax payment would be at the end of July, which would be a regular tax payment. So in accord with our code, we need to get a resolution from the board allowing the treasurer to accept and deposit that check.
Stuart, just for clarification, I understand that's a part of the code for this resolution, but like, why do we have to even pass a resolution to accept money? Why is that even?
Because we're not, because once it's after the redemption date, we can't take it without the board basically allowing it.
Okay.
So that's an anachronism, but, you know, in this case, the person's actually actually tendered it a while ago, but he was waiting for some payments from Social Security. It's all taken care of, so we're pleased to say, and we're pleased that he's also kept his monthly payments up with the town. So it does look like he'll be able to keep the property, which is the best of all worlds.
Yes. Yes. Did we motion yet?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter H, Fire Department Appointment, Senate Hook and Ladder Company Number 1, resolved upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief, Joseph Maguitolito of Ossining, New York, was declared an active member of Senate Hook and Ladder Company Number 1 for interior firefighting at their regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Continuing business of the board.
Mayor, I did send to all the board members earlier today an additional resolution for tonight, which related to the DPW resolution you folks passed 2 weeks ago. After it was awarded, it was realized that we had inadvertently circled some incorrect numbers. To explain what happened was, generally you go with lowest bid, and that's a dollar figure. For these 5 categories, it was actually percentage off of MSRP, or manufacturer's suggested retail. So the eye immediately went to the lower number, which was circled, but it actually should have been the higher percentage. There were only 2 bidders, and so effectively what we're going to do is reverse who won what. Those 2 bidders have already been notified, but rather than having to repeat the entire process, this is essentially to just correct what is a ministerial error from our end, having nothing to do with the 2 bidders. So I had prepared a resolution for that, so we could get that done if that's okay.
Sounds good.
I can read it if that's okay. Save your voice.
It's up to
okay.
you.
All right. Revised resolution, DPW bid award materials, supplies, and services for the period of June 1, 2019 to May 31, 2021. Whereas New York State law provides for a municipality to advertise and award bids for certain materials, supplies, and services as specified therein through the use of an annual bid process, which allows for the purchase of such items at a fixed cost to the municipality. And whereas the Village of Ossining has in place a procurement policy which provides for purchase and acquisition of certain materials and services by the village as required by New York State law. And whereas the Village of Ossining has advertised for materials, supplies, and services through the biannual bid process and has incorporated in the bid requirements for signed purchase orders for certain work, as well as maximum work to be undertaken by contractors and maximum project expenditures without pre-approval of the village manager or board of trustees, consistent with New York State law and the Village of Ossining's procurement policy. And whereas the Village of Ossining advertised for bids consistent with New York State law and received responses to such advertisement, and whereas on May 15, 2019, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining approved a resolution awarding the bids for materials, supplies, and services, and whereas subsequent to the bid award, village representatives realized that for a category of materials, groups A, 6A through 6E, bids were circled incorrectly, indicating low bids, and whereas the 2 bidders for these materials, Core and Main LP and Schmitz Wholesale, have been notified of the error and advised as to the successful bidder, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby awards the bid for materials, supplies, and services in accordance with the attached revised recommendations from the Department of Public Works, which recommendations are circled, and be it further resolved that the aforementioned award for materials, supplies, and services is effective June 1, 2019 through May 31, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll give that to you in Word
Thank
tomorrow.
you. New business of the board.
Seeing none?
Visitor recognition. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board?
Welcome.
Chief. My name is Aaron Moore, and the reason I'm here is because the Ossining branch of the NAACP is in the process of being reorganized. As the branch's newly elected president, I am introducing myself and the organization to the Ossining community. I am reaching out to all groups, social, political, and the churches and the Ossining community. We are a community service organization that may be a liaison that can assist the community in addressing their needs. As part of the organization, we have associates that provide us with information and direction that are tailored to the specific needs of a community on a statewide basis. There are issues that stand out for us not only in time of crisis, but 24/7. It is important that we work with our political leaders on educational, political, health, and civic engagement issues. There are situations where individual citizens may need the support of the community, and we, the NAACP, stand ready to get involved. For example, on the national or state organization, our national or state organization offers a monthly conference call providing us with information in the following areas of health and education that may be beneficial to members of local communities on a statewide basis. The example is EPIC. EPIC is a state-run program which allows seniors to not have to pay the copay on prescription drugs. They do not publicize this information. We have the information and we're going to take it to the community. Home treatment for dialysis patients and information concerning the pros and cons about that. You don't have to go to those facilities anymore and get, half your day is gone. The trip there, the trip back. I mean, you could have this done at home with professionals. We're not getting that information either. So, this is another one of the things that we, the NAACP, is doing as far as the health committee is concerned. Of course, we all know there are changes with voting. I mean, the mere fact that they moved the primary from September to June. I run into people right now who still don't know that. Okay, there are other laws with the new changes as far as voting is concerned, which we're trying to inform the community of.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Was that 4 minutes?
It was probably 3 minutes, but if you have a final summation sentence, then please.
At our meeting on June 13th, which is Thursday night of next week, we will have a speaker talking about the changes in the voting laws.
Good.
I'm hoping to reestablish a working relationship with the Ossining community. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank
ask
you.
you a question?
Hold on one
sorry,
second.
go ahead.
Yes, there's all kinds of questions. Good.
Sorry, how does the community get in touch with you? Where do they reach you?
Okay. My number, of course, which I could give you, but we have a post office box at the library, at the post office, 821, and email Ossining. No, it's NAACP 10562. Okay. You want my number now?
We can get
No, I
that
think
offline.
I was going to ask the same thing. If people want to reach you, I actually looked, you don't have a website that I could find. NAACP does, but
We're
not.
rebuilding the website. We're getting
Okay,
that done.
so that's good.
Our meetings are the second Thursday, and we were for the last few months we were at the library, but the library, we had the second floor conference room, and it's getting a little crowded there. So the Star Church has invited us to hold our meetings there. We will have a meeting at the Star Church every second Thursday.
Time again, I'm sorry.
6:30.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, and thank you for coming and letting us know. Much appreciate the invitation. All right.
Oh.
Congratulations, and thank you for your service, Ms. McAllister. Madam Clerk.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, we have to adjourn for executive session for matters of related to specific persons as well as Board of Police Commissioners.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and with that, thank you very much. We will be at Village Hall next week for our work session. This evening is adjourned to exec.